Everybody on the internet posts tokens per second, and almost nobody tells you which number they actually measured, or under what conditions, or why the number you get at home is going to be completely different from theirs. So today we fix that. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Smart Workshop. So last episode we got a language model running on a single board, and it works, it writes sentences, it's alive. And the obvious next question, which is the one basically every one of you asked in the comments, is okay, but how fast is it really? And the answer is actually more interesting than a number, so let's go earn it. Okay, so the first thing to get straight is that there isn't one speed. There are three of them. And honestly, confusing them is where most of the arguments about benchmarks come from. The first one is time to first token. You hit enter and you wait, and then the first word shows up. And that gap is the model reading your prompt and kind of thinking about it before it says anything at all. On a short question that's nearly instant, but pasted in a long document, and it can stretch out quite a bit because it has to chew through everything you handed it first. So this is the number that decides whether the thing feels responsive. The second one is generation speed. Once it starts talking, how many tokens per second are coming out? And a token is roughly 3/4 of a word, give or take. This is the one everybody quotes, and it's what decides whether watching it write feels like a conversation or like waiting for a fax. And then the third is total time, which is just how long from hitting enter to having the whole answer sitting in front of you. That's the one that actually affects your life, and it's really just the first two added together. Now, why is generation speed whatever it is? So this is the bit that's going to make you dangerous at parties, or at least at the kind of parties I go to. Remember what I told you back in episode 2. To produce one single token, the machine has to read every weight in the model, all of them, and then it turns around and does the whole thing again for the next token, and again for the one after that. So your generation speed is, roughly, your memory bandwidth divided by the size of the model sitting in memory. And I want you to sit with that one for a second, because it has some real consequences. So it means that if your model is half the size, it runs about twice as fast, and that is the entire reason the next episode exists. It also means a faster processor barely helps you, because the processor is just sitting there waiting on memory. You're not compute bound, you're bandwidth bound, which is why a Mac with that wide memory bus kind of embarrasses a board with a faster sounding CPU on paper, and it's also why overclocking your board is going to disappoint you. And it means, and this is honestly my favorite part, that you can predict your speed before you download anything at all. Take your board's memory bandwidth, divide it by your model's size on disk, and you'll land in roughly the right neighborhood. Go try it. Alright, so let's actually measure this properly. Ollama will tell you all of this if you just ask it to run in verbose mode. It breaks out the prompt evaluation and the generation separately, and it gives you the token counts and the rates for both. So that's your instrument. Now let's not go and lie to ourselves with it. Rule 1, use the same prompt every single time. And I don't mean the same kind of prompt, I mean literally the same text saved into a file. Because prompt length changes your evaluation time. So if you're comparing two models using two different prompts, you're comparing nothing. Rule 2, throw away the first run. The first time a model runs, it's loading weights off disk into memory, so what you're really measuring there is your storage, not your model. Run it once to warm it up and then start measuring. Rule 3, run it several times and report the middle value, not the best one. Because the best one is a story about one lucky moment, and the median is a story about your actual machine. And rule 4, and honestly this is the one nobody ever demonstrates, measure it again after 10 minutes. So here's why. These little boards throttle. When the chip gets hot, it slows itself down to protect itself, and that is correct behavior. That is not a defect. But it does mean that your beautiful benchmark number, the one you took 30 seconds after boot on a cold chip, is a number you are never going to see again in real use. You did put a good heatsink and fan on that board, didn't you? Right? So do this. Start a long generation, or just loop your test prompt and let the thing run for 10 solid minutes and watch the temperature climb. Then go measure it again. On a passively cooled board with no heatsink at all, don't be surprised to lose a serious chunk of your speed. Put a heatsink and a little fan on it, and we're talking a few dollars here, and you'll claw most of that back. But seriously, as a side note guys, don't run these things without a heatsink. You'll watch the core temps jump up to 90 degrees C, and you're just killing the lifespan of that poor little thing for no reason. And I really do want you to go and do this, because it's the difference between a benchmark and the truth. And when somebody posts an incredible number online with no mention of thermals or how many runs they did, well, now you know exactly what question to ask them. Okay, so let's build a little table. Same prompt, same board, 3 model sizes. and you'll see it right there in the numbers. As the model gets bigger, the tokens per second come down, roughly in proportion to the size, exactly like the formula said it would. And I'll admit, it's pretty satisfying when the theory just falls out of the measurement like that. Now, reality check, and this one is about your expectations, not about your hardware. Do not benchmark this board against a frontier cloud model. You will lose badly, and you'll learn absolutely nothing from losing, because those models are running on hardware in billion-dollar data centers, and that is not what you're competing with. So here's the only benchmark question that actually matters. Is this fast enough for the job I have? And once you start asking it that way, honestly, the whole thing reframes. Summarizing a long document at 3 tokens a second? That's completely fine. You were going to go get a coffee anyway, and it's private, and it's free, and it ran right there on your own bench. Classifying 1,000 emails overnight while you're asleep? Speed is just irrelevant. It's got 8 hours. Extracting data out of a pile of files in a batch job? Nobody's watching it. It's fine. Live back and forth conversation where you're sitting there waiting on every single reply? Yeah. Right now, on this board, that one's frustrating, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. And the hallucinations are real too. You're going to get some garbage output. So the lesson here isn't that local AI is slow. The lesson is that local AI is asynchronous. It's genuinely good at the work that doesn't need you sitting there watching it happen. And it turns out that an enormous amount of actually useful work is exactly that, which is the whole reason the back half of this series is about agents that go off and do things while you're not looking. So next time, we make the model smaller. And I don't mean we go and get a different, dumber model. I mean the same model taking up about 1/4 of the space and running roughly 4 times faster while still being almost as good. It sounds like a free lunch. It very nearly is one. And I'll show you exactly where the bill comes due. I'm Joe with the Smart Workshop, and I'll see you next time.